hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon to watch latest technological videos at 9 p.m. IST every Monday. Hello friends, myself Sagar from Developers Thought, and in this particular session we're going to discuss about the REST API modeling, that is how to model a REST API for the applications. In REST APIs, any information that can be named can be a resource. Okay, so as all of you know, in REST APIs we think everything to be a resource and all the operations are revolved around that particular resource. Now second point is, API that we are going to design should fulfill the desired functionality to the client and also behave correctly and should be maintainable and scalable. Now next thing is very important one. Resources in REST can be a singleton and it can be a collection. Now what it means? So let's take an example. If you are taking account to be a resource, then account is a singleton resource wherein the accounts is a collection resource. Now in REST API modeling, we can classify resources into two parts. First is fine-grained resource and other one is coarse-grained resource. Okay. Now let's discuss some points regarding these two particular resources. Now with fine-grained resources, client need to make multiple requests for one single operation, but on the other hand, with coarse-grained resource, in a single request itself, a client can perform single operation. Now second point is, in case of fine-grained resource, business logic is exposed to a client and chances of data inconsistency are increased. There will be a possibility that client will miss one step of operation or which can lead to data invalidity. Okay, so here the tight coupling is seen in case of fine-grained resources. Now let's take an example. Okay, so let's take so there is a blogging website. Okay, in blogging you need to fill up the form, you need to give the title, you need to give a body if you want to attach some image. Okay, now let's say there are, so this particular resource is a fine-grained resource. Okay, so for putting the title there is a one call. Okay, for putting the body there is another call, for attaching the image there is another call. Okay, so for doing the one operation, that is posting a blog, you have to do multiple requests to the resource. Okay, one for title, other for body, and the next one is for the image. But in case, let's say if it is a coarse-grained resource, that means a complete blog is one resource instead of the single fields, then in that case posting a blog is only one request which will contain all the data, and in this particular request we can also do the data validation at once. So there is no data invalidity. Okay, data will be consistent and there is no tight coupling. And in the case of coarse-grained resource, now the business logic is not exposed to the user. Okay, he will not know that the title will be inserted first, then the body, then the image. So this is the clear difference between a fine-grained resource and a coarse-grained resource. Now let's not get confused between the domain entities and the resources. Now domain entities are an internal logic wherein the resource is exposed to be an business logic. For example, account table is the domain wherein account resource is the business logic. Okay, so there is a clear difference between our domain and the business process and the resources. Okay, we should not expose domain directly to be an REST API. Okay, now second thing is, business process and the capabilities can neatly fit into the definition of resource. I will come back to this point. Okay, the other points are also important, like to escape the low level CRUD operations we need to make the business process operation as a resource. Okay, and what it means and what is the advantage of doing this. If you make domain entity as a resource such as account and allowing client to update it directly, then we are losing the event information like auditing, validation. But if we have entity as a process, then all the information can be reserved. Okay, so let's take an example. Let's say we are building a banking application wherein we have to have the different REST APIs. Okay, so to open an account, okay, so if let's say if you are considering account domain entity to be an exposing via the REST API, okay, then the business logic of opening an account can be exposed to a client. That means first you need to put all the details in a form, okay, then this particular form has to be submitted, so there has to be API which is taking information about the account name, email ID, other thing, and that particular API, then that particular call will insert the data into the account table. Now in this complete scenario, all your business logic has been exposed to the client. Now, but on the other hand, if we have opening an account as a business capability exposed via the account resource, okay, so let's say the name of the API would be open account, okay. Now in this case, if we are exposing this particular business process to be an REST API, so what happens in this case, all the information like auditing, validation, event information can be preserved. How? So the customer will post a request at the backend that I want to submit a form, okay, he'll send all the details to the API, okay. Now the request number has been given to the user again, that we have taken your request and now we are in a process of processing this particular creation of account. And in the backend, the different processes has been running, like first validating all the details, do a background check, other stuff, we do the auditing part, and once the account has been opened, okay, so there is status has been maintained. Now user can use this request number to get the information about this particular account opening, okay. So the reason I have taken this example, so that we can get clear understanding of how to use this business process, okay, to create a REST API modeling around this. Now some of the last points to discuss. The first point is put method puts too much internal domain knowledge into the client, whereas it should be a source of user content. That means if we are in the APIs, if we have lots of put method corresponding to the API calls, then we are exposing lot of internal domain knowledge to the user. That means user can directly update the information without any validation, okay, and without auditing. And so the example that we have seen in the last particular slide, okay, about the customer enrollment. Now with REST without put technique, the idea is that consumers are forced to post new notified requests. That means for updating a detail, instead of updating detail directly via the REST API, we are actually creating a request to update an data. For example, let's say you have opened an account in a bank. Now you want to update the email ID. So in that case, instead of having a call which is directly updating an email ID, there has to be a REST API which will create a request of updating an email ID, okay, and then it will give you a request number. Via that request number, you can get a status that my email ID has been updated. So that means we are not directly exposing the domain entities or the internal business logic to the client, okay. Now at last, the real world APIs are mix of high level, coarse grain and the low level fine grain APIs. So it's not always that ideal API should be a high level coarse grained APIs or it should be a low level fine grained APIs. It should be mix of both, okay. Now that's it for today's session, okay. If you like the content, go ahead, do like, share, subscribe and comment on the video. Thank you and take care.